Hi everyone. Hello. Welcome to another I'm Exci-tea-ed, where I drink tea and talk about something that's been living rent-free in my brain and take up space until I get it out of my brain, and then hopefully I can move on with my life a little bit. And today, you might be able to guess from my outfit, possibly, we're going to be talking about the Barbie movie. Oh boy. This is a surprisingly big subject. Who knew? A lot of strong reactions on the internet, a lot of strong opinions about a Barbie movie. And you know what? I sip my tea like I'm going to do anything different, and I'm probably going to instigate some strong opinions. But it is what it is. I want to talk about this thing, and I want to talk about it with you. Slash with myself. So yeah. Starting off, I want to be quite honest. My viewing experience is I've watched this movie once. It was over a week ago. So anyone who has watched this multiple times will be more knowledgeable than I will. They'll be able to quote better than I will. They will have a more comprehensive knowledge than I will. I have not seen Oppenheimer. I did not do a double feature. I just can't be bothered to spend money on a movie ticket when I'm not interested in seeing said movie. I can't afford it. Similarly, I did dress up and it was super fun. I wore this dress, which is my bridesmaid's dress from my sister's wedding, which is one of the few pink-ish items I have, but it's very 1950s, it's very Barbie. I wore it with a petticoat, I wore it with heels, and I'll be entirely honest, for every single accessory I added, I became more ecstatically happy. I wore a big bow in my hair. I put in my hair extensions. I wore a big chunky glittery necklace. I wore my big chunky earrings. I put on makeup. Just every time I added another thing, I just got more and more happy. And even without the movie having an occasion to access that level of joy and that kind of recommitment to my past self, to baby Jenny, and her love of Barbies, and her love of dressing up, and her love of just being pretty and girly, that in of itself is worth the price of admission. Um, it was genuine, like it was just joyful. It was joyful getting to dress up as a poofy, glittery, pinky, sparkly thing. It felt like reclaiming some of my childhood at 30 years old. So, um, I will admit, I was going to try and avoid reviews and other people's thoughts on this movie, and I unfortunately have not. I've watched a couple of videos here and there. I watched one by accident, which was a review I did not agree with, which was a predominantly negative one, which stated things along the lines of it being a man-hating feminist piece of trash, and that we shouldn't be exposing our young girls to feminism, and we should be relating to God more, which that's an opinion, not one that I necessarily follow, but it is an opinion that someone apparently has had. Um, I have also watched one on the asexuality themes in the Barbie movie, which I'll try not to repeat, but I will link in the description, because I think it is a phenomenal video about asexuality of sexualized characters, and how sexualized characters are still asexual, and sexualizing them does not stop them from being asexual, and also maybe is a reflection on the person viewing the entity rather than the character themselves. But I will link that in the description. It was phenomenal. I watched it today and was like, I agree with almost every single point here. Good, 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 good. But yes. I have also watched a couple of other clips here and there. For example, I didn't know that the teenage girls in the midpoint were a reference to the Black Bratz dolls. As soon as you realise it, you're like, oh yes, that's a reference. Awesome. I saw that on Instagram. Whoever worked that out, genius. But yes. So I'm gonna try and somewhat keep this brief and somewhat less tangenty than I could do. I do have notes, but that probably is not going to stop me from being tangenty and rambly. But we'll see how we go. I kind of want to start off super quickly saying my history to do with Barbies. I was a big Barbie lover as a kid. I have dug out my Barbies since going to the Barbie movie because I wanted to recreate that joy from dressing up and from the first couple of sequences of wondrous, ironic wish fulfillment. The whole first sequence of this movie is the wish fulfillment that almost every single female I know and female presenting person that I know would love. The idea of being able to live independently, to have your own career, to have your own success, to not be judged for your emotions. And they're such cliches, but they are cliches for a reason, because almost every person I know who is female presenting has at some point been told that they are too emotional or too soft or not logical enough. And so the little speech along the lines of, I have posed my argument with the correct amount of logic and emotion, and neither of them made the argument weaker. They made both of them made my argument stronger. It hit me in my feels in a way that I wasn't quite expecting. And woof, does that tell you something about the quality of the writing in this? But yes, I was a big Barbie stan. And although I didn't necessarily put my Barbies away, I wasn't forced to put my Barbies away, I remember feeling the shame of liking girly things, of liking pink things as I grew up. And so at some point all my Barbies got put in the attic, and in 2015 I reduced down my Barbie collection. At one point I had at least 15, some of which I bought myself, some of which were gifts, some of which were cast-offs. I had a car, I had a moped, I had a carriage, I had 2 horses. And at some point, all of those went. I don't know how old I was when I eventually got rid of those, but I know a purge happened in 2015 because that's what it says on the box that was in the attic. So I still have a couple of Barbies, but I kind of feel sad in a way that I got rid of the other ones, because they were an essential part of my childhood. I remember the excitement, the desperate excitement of saving up enough to then get the bus to Toy Story in Oxford, go to Toy Story and buy a Barbie, and then take it home on the bus, and being really careful not to open the toy box until I got home. It was a big part of my early development. And so watching this movie that is not aimed at boys, it's not aimed at young men, and to be honest, I genuinely don't think it's aimed at young girls. I think this movie is aimed at exactly my demographic, which is the mature, old women who played with Barbies as children. I think that's the demographic we're talking about here, because there is so much in this movie that is both adult women wish fulfillment, adult women acknowledgement, adult woman rhetoric, and cathartic, shallow frustration yelling, but also the deep nostalgia that you can only feel if it's something that you've given up. And we all gave up our Barbies at some point. We all put them in the attic, or we all put them in charity, or we all just gave up. And some of it was personally instigated, and some of it was instigated by a combination of society and friends. But at some point we all gave up our Barbies. But watching this movie and seeing the massive shell earrings and the massive shell necklace and the big chunky jewelry and the crazy Barbie, all of that pinged something so deep in my soul, I cannot even express it. I don't know what else to say on that. It hit deep in my brain. And the rest of it is very much aimed at adult women. The line about objectification feeling violent is something that a lot of me and other women of my age and female presenting persons have felt. The massive tirade, almost parody level tirade against patriarchy, is something we've all felt, said, or wanted to say. Like, the fact that it's being vocalized in such a parody level way both underpins the question and also enforces the argument. And I can understand how that could be uncomfortable for people who are not female presenting or have not experienced the kind of discrimination that she's discussing, but for someone who has, oh boy, was it cathartic. But yes, I'm referring to my notes. I have notes. They're written in pink. Yes. Anyway, I'm going to move on a little bit because I feel like I've been talking too much. Generally speaking, my quick review for this movie before I go into any more details is my teeth got cold from smiling too much. I was sat in this film smiling so hard. I laughed out loud twice. And, you know, in a British cinema, that is a feat. Like, you do the, like, kind of occasional sniggers or, like, smiling, but you don't laugh out loud. You don't round of applause. I actually applauded at one point. I was the only one in the cinema applauding, but it was for the Margot Robbie was miscast for this moment joke, and that was so peak meta, I adored it. Also, if ever I was going to have self-esteem issues, it's not going to be about a Barbie, it's going to be about Margot Robbie, and we'll go a little bit more into self-esteem issues as we go. But yes. Carrying on, we're going to, again, I'm going to try and break this up into subject matters, but again, this is a very scattered review. My quick reviews, I really enjoyed this film. I'll probably rewatch it at some point. I feel like it's one of those films that if you want to, I compared this film to a bath with a glittery bath bomb in it. It's super shallow and it's super see-through and you can see through everything. However, if you want to see the depth, you can analyze every single sparkle. You can judge it as sparkles that will stick to the bath and then you got to clean it up and it's inherently negative, or you can look at the sparkles and go, actually that's really nice. That's really nice, and you know what? I can sink into that hot bath and it will be pleasant. But if you say that bath is going to drown you, and you get drowned in the bath, then that's your opinion too, and that is still technically valid, although it's not how most normal, mature people would view a bath. I don't know if that metaphor hits home for anyone, but that's how it works for me. Some people are viewing this as a glittery bath that is there to drown people in, and I'm there being like, it's kind of glittery and warm and nice to look at, and you know, if I were to analyse it, there's plenty to look at. But there we go. Moving on. I want to talk about Ken a little bit, because a lot of people have said this is man-hating as a movie. And I think predominantly that's because it's a predominantly female cast with only 3 or 4 named speaking male roles of significance. And several of them are kind of negative characters, or characters that are considered weaker than others. So we're going to start with Ken, the big one, Ryan Gosling. Wonderful casting. My gosh, did he work out for this movie? I'm sure there was makeup involved a little bit to highlight and lowlight certain things, but he put in effort in the same way Margot Robbie puts in effort. And I'll go a little bit more into that in a minute. But a lot of people viewed it as him being a dumb, stupid, kind of like a pathetic character. And I want to be very, very clear on this fact. Ken, in the canonical version of the Barbie world, is a prop for Barbie. He is Beach Ken. He is the thing that goes with Barbie when she goes to the beach. In the same way that Barbie will have beach sunglasses, or a beach parasol, or a beach, I don't know, like, sun hat. Ken is the accessory that goes with her to the beach. He is a prop. And I love the fact that they made him a sentient prop. And in many ways, he's a sentient prop that is more sentient and more intelligent emotionally than Barbie is. Now, Barbie's exciting incident that gets her into the story is that something else, an external source, in this case being the mother-daughter combination, is enforcing emotions and thoughts into her mind that are not her own. And Ken has wants, has needs, and is aware that he is a prop. And that's a horrifying meta-universe for him to be in. To know that he is just a prop for Barbie, and to not know what that even means for him. He doesn't know if they're boyfriend-girlfriend. He doesn't know what that means. He's got no sexual organs, but feels like he ought to be her boyfriend, while his literal role in the Barbie world is to be a prop. He's to be there when she turns up to the beach, so she can have a story at the beach. In this case, getting injured because he got into a surfing accident. And that is incredibly interesting emotional storytelling for him, that he is actually Barbie's kind of a reactive character, while Ken, at least to begin with, is an actually proactive character. He decides to jump in Barbie's car to go to the real world, while Barbie gets told by crazy Barbie that she needs to go because of an external thing that is happening to her. So anyone who is putting blame on Ken, like, let's put it in that context. He's a prop who is fighting for his own rights to be an independent entity. And you know what? He makes mistakes. He makes crippling, horrible mistakes. He makes mistakes based on the fact that he is untrained, misinformed, and is out in a world which he's never been into before. A similar situation that I think a lot of young men have is they go out into the world hoping that things will work out for them, not knowing what they ought to be or what they should be, and kind of lose footing a little bit. And he goes out into this real world and sees and appreciates the fact that it's a patriarchy rather than a matriarchy, so he is treated with more respect because in this world he's seen as a human being and not as a prop, but takes it a little bit too far. And he even says he thought patriarchy was about horses. If there were horses in Barbie world, and he could have been horse Ken, or like horse riding Ken, rather than beach Ken, he would be much, much happier. But he isn't able to do that because he's a prop. And so I appreciate that his character arc is the one of actually being like emotional maturity, learning his limits, and learning that he can be something other than a prop. And that's a really compelling storyline, and anyone who thinks he's just a dumb bimbo there to represent men who you should hate, that's not a thing. That's not what I took from it at all. And the fact that his main character arc is resolved by him talking about his feelings and realizing that he's a valid being who should be his own self is something that I think a lot of young men should enjoy and take into themselves and learn from. So yeah, I just want to put that forward. I will also say I have a real problem when it comes to certain cinema sequences when I'm watching in a large cinema where I have difficulty registering audio cues over the big screen and the amount of stuff that's going on screen. So I miss quite a lot of the details in his song, other than the fact that it was a really cool Grease reference. I kind of want to rewatch it again with subtitles so I can catch more of the lyrics. I'm just going to throw that out there. Right. I would just want to do a little shout out to the costume set and cinematography because it was awesome. I mean, we've talked there's videos and videos about how great the sets are. The sets are phenomenal. The costumes are great. I just want to give a shout out to them because, yes, 1,000 times yes. But one of the things I really noticed that I'm pretty sure is true, but I'm not 100% sure. Every time there was a wide shot of Barbie driving through the town in her car, I'm almost certain it was a miniature, which was just a Barbie in a push car being pulled around a little made-up set. I could be wrong, but it definitely looked like it. Right. Wow, I can't read my handwriting at all on that section. Oh, yes. So in terms of messaging in this movie, there is a lot of messaging. There's a lot that is said, and a lot of it doesn't stick. And I think that's why this film feels kind of shallow. There's a lot of, as I said, wish fulfillment. There's a lot of kind of feminine rage that is stated, but it doesn't necessarily actually hold water within the narrative. There's things like the Mattel company being run by men, which is fundamentally true that most businesses are run by men, even businesses that are aimed at young women and girls. Particularly even businesses aimed at young women and girls are most commonly run by men who are paid more than the females that they are selling to. But it comes down to, like, it is a message, but it is a message, the way that they tone it, and the way that they cast it, and the way that they present it. It's such a surreal world. It's kind of interesting to me how you have the Barbie world, which is meant to be this fantasy, this complete creation, and then you have the real world, and then you have the Mattel world, and the Mattel world is almost, if not more surreal than the Barbie world. The fact that it's all men, the fact that the cubicles are weirdly spaced, the colours and the homogeny of it all is as if not more surreal than the Barbie world. And so it is not meant to be a literal interpretation of current gender politics. It is meant to be a metaphor, and an ironic metaphor, in exactly the same way as the opening sequence in Barbie world. It is bizarre, it is caricature, and it is not meant to be taken literally. It's a comedy. Now, if you want to read into it, then you may. But I don't think it's man-hating. I think it's just pointing out a fact, but it feels very shallow, because it's pointing out a fact in a very shallow way. And because of the way, again, it's cast and written, the Mattel executives, it does feel very shallow. What things do stick for me, then? If the feminist ideology and the the feminist ideology, which is probably the heaviest theme throughout, is perhaps the thinnest theme, what sticks for me? The things that stick for me, when having watched this film, are themes of aging and aging beauty. So we have two old lady characters who are met within the story, both of whom hold such significant gravitas for older feminine energy, which is not met by the general cast. The general cast are Barbies. They are all beautiful, young, the ideal of modern femininity, which is this young, youthful beautifulness. While these two older female characters are treated with such reverence and kindness, and they are feminine energy. Those two particular characters hit home in a way that I think is not represented enough, that maternal, kind, feminine energy, which is so rarely seen. And some people said this was anti-motherhood, somehow. I don't understand how this can be the case when two of the main characters are mother-daughter, and two of the other characters are these deeply maternal older women characters. Yes, they are throwaway, almost cameo-esque characters, but they do hold such a weight within the narrative that I feel like them as characters being featured had more of an impact on me than most of the feminine ranting, the feminist ranting. Another one that hit probably the hardest of all of the themes, which is, again, a tongue-in-cheek choice by Mattel, is the metaphor that consumerism will win beyond anything else. Consumerism will win, and it will win greater than anything that any individual is able to do. The Ken as a misogynist Barbies sell. They present the adverts. They're flying off the shelves. The depressed Barbie sells. It's flying off the shelves. And the pitch at the end that depressed Barbie with cellulite, or just normal Barbie, who's maybe a mother, she's maybe not, would sell like crazy. And that's all proven fact within this universe, that what will happen is a concept can be made, it can be manufactured, and it can be sold, and it will be bought. And that's probably the main takeaway that I got, because that is where the narrative continually says is the truth. And you know what? I went to spend money on this movie, and I walked past a Barbie shop on the way home, and I so nearly went inside to look at the Barbies. It was a close call. And that message hit home. The amount that consumerism would win is one of the strongest messages of this film, and I'm glad it's tongue-in-cheek, but it's also super depressing. Now, I'm not going to talk about asexuality in Barbie. I will link to the video that I watched. I think it's a wonderful argument if you are interested in that. But I will also talk a little bit about gender choice in this movie. So it's explicitly said multiple times, which is partially a joke on the fact that Barbies are designed that way, but also to do with the relationship between Barbie and Ken, that Barbie has no genitals. 'Tis true. She's got nothing down below. And she also is emotionally, or like romantically asexual. She has no interest in Ken in an emotional capacity because he is a prop. He is a prop that she appreciates, and eventually communicates clearly with, but he is a prop and she's just not interested. And so when it comes to the concept of gender choice, the fact that a woman who does not have the specified genitals of their presentation, she is presented as female and does not have female genitals. And by the end of the movie, she makes the choice, and at the end of the movie, the final punchline is that she is visiting her gynecologist for the first time. So she has made the choice to affirm the gender that she's always been presented as. And for me, that is a wonderful trans message. I do not know if that is how trans people necessarily took it. I know that there is a trans Barbie as part of the ensemble cast. But that was such a powerful concept, that she has a choice to become human, and part of her choice to become human includes the concept of acquiring the sexual items, or the sexual the genitals that she would require to become a human. And I just found that really affirming, from a gender choice perspective, that you have that choice to be whom you actually believe yourself to be, regardless of what you're born with, which I like. Now, when it comes to another message which hit home, is support networks. Women supporting women, families supporting families, men supporting men. There's so much like friction between the Kens throughout the story, and it's not until they are given a little bit of independence and self-reliance that they are able to really connect. But so much of it comes down to people supporting people. It's not, Ken doesn't realize what he's missing until he sits down with Barbie and says, I don't know what's going on and I'm sad about it. And she goes, okay, let's see, maybe you need to see yourself first. In the same way that the family that take Barbie in, they're just a wonderful family, and they just support each other, and they take her to her doctor's appointment, and they want her to see her progress and show that same love that they share to each other to this new person. And I enjoy that theme. Right. A couple of quick ones that I wanted to throw in there before I call it a day, because I've talked a lot, I think, already. So I've already talked a little bit about how it's kind of ironic that Ken has his own thoughts and process kind of spurring from his own intuition, while Barbie's thoughts and processes are actually controlled by others. They're either controlled by her owner, in which case she's getting the depression and everything gets controlled by the person who's playing with her, or the concept that in the end she's being controlled by men. The men are the head of the company, and they're the ones that create and built her. So there's another fun kind of idea of her being a passive character who is kind of pulled on a hero's journey versus Ken, who chooses to go on his hero's journey. Just throwing that out there. Right, I've got, again, a couple of quick ones. So, when it comes to lack of princesses, all of the Barbies that I chose to buy when I was little were Barbies who were princesses. So we have, this is one of my least favourite ones, but I must have kept it for a reason, Ice Skating Barbie. She is Ice Princess, I believe, is her title. So she's an ice skating Barbie, but she's got a crown. She's also got nail polish on her legs, which looks a bit alarming. We have, this one was a mermaid princess. You can tell by the coloured streaks in her hair, but she's actually wearing a bridal gown. We have not one, but two Rapunzels, one of which has had a crazy haircut because that's what you do with your Barbies. She had like clip-on hair extensions. Or did you pull her hair out of her back? I can't remember. I'm not gonna strip my Barbie on camera, that seems lewd. But look how pretty these dresses are. And other Rapunzel, who's still got her extra long hair. Super pretty Barbies, love both of these. And we also have Sleeping Beauty, who you can touch Sleeping Beauty because her eyes open and close. And she used to have a singing pillow. But yes, why were there no princess Barbies in this? Partially, I think, because you didn't want to clash with Disney in terms of Disney princesses. Partially because you don't necessarily want people to have homework to go and read the Rapunzel, like watch all the Barbie movies that are already created. Also, this is kind of a postmodern Barbie world, so all of them are modern Barbies. And I think possibly the main reason why there's no Princess Barbies in the Barbie movie is because most Princess Barbies come with a horse and carriage, and they wanted to have a Barbie world where Ken did not have access to horses. That's my main theory. We'll see. A really tiny thing, which I really flippin' loved, and I just want to say, because it's entirely personal. The father who is learning on Duolingo how to speak Spanish is exactly like my mum using Duolingo to learn Spanish. She's completely obsessed. She keeps on talking Spanish into her phone and having little robot voice read it back to her. And it hit me again so deep in my soul I couldn't even express it. It was so on point. Right. I want to talk a couple of things super duper quick. So I kind of talked about it a little bit in terms of the getting ready process for going to this movie, digging out my Barbies. But I really, really enjoyed the idea that this film is helping to kind of reclaim some childhood. So much of being a young girl is you get told that you need to grow up and put aside the pink and put aside the Barbies, and you got to be more mature, and get rid of girlish things. Things are too girly, they're too young. You need to become a woman. And that's really sad. As a 30-year-old, that's really sad that we have to give up on our childhood so young and become sexy women well before our time. I can remember being 11 years old and feeling like I ought to, now that I'm over, I might be in 10, feeling like I'm in double digits now, I need to wear bikinis and be sexy. I don't know where this thought process came from, but it is pressurizing young girls to flaunt themselves. And I'm a relatively modest, pretty boring adult. But I can remember that pressure on me to be that sort of character, to be that sort of person. And so it's really lovely part of this movie. It's going back and being like, you know what? Let's not sexualize this. Let's just enjoy the fact that she has no genitals, and it doesn't matter that she has no genitals, because frankly, little girls, we shouldn't be worrying about their genitals either. We should just be going, pretty dress! Doesn't she look so lovely? The Velcro's broken at the back, but yes! Like, I want to wear this. Is this dress sexy? No! No! Is this body sexy? No! You know what it is? It's cute, and it's pretty, and it makes me happy, and this character may be someone who fell asleep a lot, but you know what? So do I. I need to brush her hair. Her hair's real bad. But yeah, I feel like reclaiming girlhood is something that's so important to Barbies, and my gosh, do I look pale in comparison to this Barbie. But yeah. And it kind of goes hand in hand with the not like other girls trope, which I'll link to Abby Cox's video, which she specifically related not like other girls trope with corset wearing in historical films and media. But it's definitely something that I didn't realise until I watched her video that I had fully internalised for quite some time, and now I'm making active effort to reject that not like other girls trope. And the not like other girls trope, if you've never heard it, is the idea that I'm not like other girls. I don't wear makeup, and I don't wear pink, and I don't worry about fashion, other girly things. No, I listen to music, and I play sports, and I don't mind if I just wear a t-shirt and no makeup and have, like, whatever. And, all of that side of things. Which, by default, associates the better and the more powerful and the more normal with a masculine ideal. The ideal that feminine things, girly things, things that are pink and pretty and empathetic and creative and all of that is by default weaker and lesser and less interesting and makes you vapid and vain. And the masculine ideal is therefore the better. And I feel like as I've matured over the last couple of years even, I have thought how sad that is. And how it's nice to reclaim that sort of feminine feeling, that enjoy of girlish things, and how it's not weaker and it's not lesser. And I know it's such a simple concept for me to express at this point, but it is something that I had fully internalized and not realized it. And this coming from a girl who loves wearing skirts and loves wearing heels, but doesn't like to wear makeup because I can't be bothered. But coming hand in hand with that is the concept that beauty for aesthetic reasons is so much work. It's an art form, being beautiful. Like learning how to do your makeup properly, the diet, the exercise, the fashion ideas, the money that you have to spend on it. And that is a goal that is relevant and acceptable and interesting and powerful in its own right. Just because it's not something that I personally aspire to does not mean that it's not an art form. And I'm kind of almost angry at my past self for not appreciating that. And I said I was going to talk a little bit into self-esteem issues. So watching all of this Barbie stuff on the internet, you appreciate how much of a goddess Margot Robbie is. Margot Robbie is beyond beautiful. She is wonderfully symmetrical. She's gifted with being a very beautiful human being. But I'm also aware that she probably wore braces as a kid. She has an entire makeup and hair team supporting her. And even though her hair is gorgeous in real life, I know for a fact some of those hairstyles are definitely wigs in this movie. She has fashion help. She has to do, I'm sure, a pretty intensive workout regime, a pretty intensive dental hygiene regime, a pretty intensive makeup regime. Like, I have no doubt she puts in a significant amount of effort into her appearance. So yes, I can idealize that beauty. But if I'm not willing to learn the skills, and they are skills, to try and emulate that, then I shouldn't be angry if I don't achieve it. In the same way, I shouldn't be jealous if I see a beautiful painting on the wall and think, I can't paint like that. I need to learn how to do it, and I might never be that good. I might not have the dexterity, might not have the skills, I might not have the bone structure, I might not have the teeth, or I might not have the money to develop those skills, and that is a sign of just life. So it's just one of those interesting things to me that, having relatively recently internalized the not just other girls trope as something that's negative, that I've really grown to appreciate the power that girlish things have, and the joy they can bring and the power they have in them of themselves, and not necessarily, although this was something that was brought up in the film, the passive power that women sometimes have. So there's a whole funny sequence near the end of the film where all the Barbies manipulate all the Kens by making them jealous, by passively kind of moving from one Ken to another. And that is a power. It is a passive power, and not necessarily part of it that necessarily appeals to me, but it is something that I can appreciate as a power of girlishness and a power of femininity, that I am learning to appreciate more as I mature, which, again, I'm moving further and further away from the term girlish, and yet I can appreciate girly things. And my last point is on the colour pink. Which I don't know how long this video is. This video is so long. This is a very long Exci-tea-ed, but it is what it is. This is chocolate and black tea, by the way. It's lovely. But my last point is the colour pink. So the colour pink is one of those ones that when I was going through my not like other girls, internalization, and my maturing, I moved away from pink. I was disgusted by the colour pink, and I still don't love the colour pink. It's one of those things where I choose to wear maybe a dark plum or a sort of reddish purplish colour. I won't really wear that much pink. This is the pinkest dress that I have, and I wear a lot of dresses. And I would never choose to paint a room pink. You know, if I'm going to wear a colour, it will probably be blue most of the time. But you'll notice on the internet and at my work, I choose the colour pink to identify myself. My category when I'm tagging emails for myself with the shared managerial email at work is pink. Because we have a shared email, I will tag anything for me in pink. When I'm on Twitch, I always set my title to be pink. On Discord, I set my title to be pink. And part of that is the ownership of identifying my gender. Now, pink itself is not necessarily a gendered colour in some other cultures. In Japan, it can be quite a masculine colour because it's a version of red. But generally speaking, for most cultures, and most cultures that are influenced by Western culture, it is a feminine marker. And it's something that I don't necessarily appreciate, but I use quite a lot, as I said, to identify myself. I identify myself as pink. And it's interesting to me that even though I don't necessarily like the colour, I always choose it. Because I think there is something to be said for being identifiable by a theme colour. And I don't know, it's just something that I was thinking about. Right. I think that's most of what I was talking about. I have no idea how long this video is. It's probably insanely long. But thank you all for hanging out if you hung out this long. I genuinely don't know if half of what I've said today has made any sense or is just pure rambling. It could be just pure rambling. And again, it's just thought about a movie I've seen once that is like a bath bomb, a glittery bath bomb in a bath. I could break down every single grain of glitter if I had the time, and I'd spent way more time watching it. However, if you choose to see it as just a tub of water that you can sink into and enjoy and come out feeling shiny and glittery and positive about yourself, please do. If you decide to view it as a study mess where you're going to have to tidy up afterwards and it wasn't worth it, you can view it that way. And if you choose to view it as something that you will drown children in and it's just terrible for the environment and it's the worst thing in the universe, that's your opinion. But you know what? It's not going to stop me sinking into the bath and having a good time. Anyway, have a good day and maybe see you again soon for another I'm Exci-tea-ed. Hopefully not quite this long in the future. Goodbye, Barbies. Bloop.